Welcome to The Mouse and Men, where we explore the grown-up side of Disney. Find us on social media at The Mouse and Men on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Find us on YouTube and go to themouseandmen.com where you can get all those social links and you can find our top 10 things for grown-ups to do in Walt Disney World. I'm Bradley. I'm here with Chris, and this week we're going outside the Disney parks, outside the Disney properties. We're going to Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, talking to a former park entertainer there, a friend of mine, a friend of Chris's. His name's Otto Gross. Chris, this guy is just a stand-up guy and quite the entertainer.
Oh, absolutely. And the interview itself, I could have stayed on there for another hour, but just to hear all the stories from him being a park entertainer, similar to the cast members in the Disney parks, it's just amazing what you kind of get a look behind the scenes. I've always wondered my whole life, you see all these people dress up like princesses, or they're singing a song up on a stage, or they're just getting you on the roller coaster. What is their life like working at a theme park? That was one of my number one things that I would have loved to have done growing up, but to have never experienced it. It's great to hear Otto talk about that. So a good friend of ours, I'm so appreciative that he was willing to come on the show and just talk about it. So it was a blast. I want to do it again very soon.
Me too. Otto Gross, what a fantastic interview. So let's just get right to it. Well, we'd like to welcome Otto Gross II to The Mouse and Men. Otto, you haven't worked in a Disney park, but you were a park entertainer for a summer or two at Hershey Park in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, 4 summers actually.
4 summers.
Yep.
Excuse me. I did not do my research properly.
You're good. 4 summers.
So did you do the same thing every time? Because I know you, if you're watching this on YouTube, in the background, the Soda Pops, just a live band that performed in the parks. That's what I knew you to do. Was that what you did every summer, or were there other things that you did there in Hershey Park?
No, yeah, that was it for at least for my job. I know some of the other entertainers, they did kind of switch between other things, but yeah, all of the years I was there, I was either the drummer or the keyboard player for the Soda Pops. But each year it kind of turned into a different band slightly. Like we had different costumes, and there was always kind of like a camaraderie vision that somehow when you get together with the guys long enough, you do the same thing every day, it turns into that thing for that summer, so, but it was always the Soda Pops.
Yeah. Well, take us through, maybe the audition process, the preparation process, all before you actually make it to the stage in the park.
Yeah. Well, audition wise, so I went to Berklee College of Music. That's where I graduated from. And there was my freshman year, I remember looking at, we had a little kind of a posting called the Career Development something. It was at the Career Development Center.
Yeah. And
it would post all of the gigs that you could possibly do during the summer, or cruise gigs, that sort of thing. And I saw that there were 3. There was Hershey Park. There was one for, what's the one? I forget what, it'll come to me later, but it has the biggest roller coaster. Where is that?
Cedar Point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was Hershey Park, Cedar Point, and then one other thing that I had not heard of. And so I saw the Hershey Park one, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to audition for it just to see what that's like. I didn't really, in my mind, I wasn't thinking I want to work at a theme park. It was more just, I just want to audition. So I did. I went in, and I remember his name is Walt Straighton. Great friend of mine now, actually. But he said, I forgot what the audition material was, but we went in there. He said, well, what do you want to audition on? And I said, drums. So I played like a little drum solo, and you've kind of seen me play drum solos. You know, I put the stick on my head and balance it and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, and I think Walt was pretty mesmerized because he started, usually in auditions, it's like the authority's position to be like stern and, you know, don't show that the person's doing well. And Walt wasn't like that at all. He was like making jokes. It was great.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, do you play anything else? Because I think he read something about me. He said, do you play anything else? I said, well, I play a little piano. He said, why don't you play something on piano? So I played Mary Had a Little Lamb, but I did it in all keys. Like we know some of the same people that kind of are goofy. Yeah. But I did Mary Had a Little Lamb. I did it in all the keys. And then I played like a Stevie Wonder tune. And he shook my hand. He said something like, Otto, you're an incredible talent, and I'll be seeing you in a couple months. And that was before, like, I don't think he's supposed to say that, you know?
Right.
But
you're supposed to review all the candidates before you make a declaration.
Right. So I was excited. So we that was, I forget what day it was, but after the audition, I know that they had to do some more rounds because they go around the country. It's not just Berkeley. They'll go to Berkeley, Juilliard. They go to a lot of different places in every state and review people. And he said, well, you'll probably get, an email from us in a month or 2 months or so. And I did. The email came and it was like 8 pages long of different things that we kind of just had to know and do in the park and kind of prep work for it. They sent the music out and that was the audition process.
So how many, when you got that list of music, how many songs were on that list?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I don't mix what we actually played with the music that we got.
Yeah, because when just knowing as an entertainer, you've got a list of music to play, but you don't get to all that. And so you rehearse a lot more than you actually perform, I'm sure.
Maybe not. And I think more of the thing sometimes is things are switched out versus not being able to be played.
Yeah.
But I remember we did get the first year, the Soda Pops did like doo-wop, like 60s. That was like the thing. So it was, I'm trying to remember some of those songs now. And I'm sure I will not, but it was like that stuff. So I would say probably about 15 songs, maybe 15, 16 songs.
Okay.
That was the first year. And that was kind of just prep work to get to, rehearsal week. Yeah. And then when we got to rehearsal week, then they added on some more. But I would say about 15 or 16 songs initially.
Yeah. And then go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, what's that process once you start rehearsal week? Is that like boot camp for park entertainers kind of thing? Like, is it like, do you go and meet everybody else and you're all there on site? Like, what does that look like for you to do rehearsal week?
Basically, that's basically it. So after you know what you're doing and you sign all the papers and all that, the first couple days, the first day you get there and you go to the park to sign all of your paperwork, and they have your part, like your house, housing for the summer and where you're supposed to be. So you go there, you get all your stuff, pack it out, and then you meet the other performers. And rehearsal weeks does start on, I think, on a Monday. And they have at Hershey Park, and I'm sure Disney and Hershey, and they probably have different spacing for this sort of thing, but at Hershey Park, there's the park, and then just outside of the park, there is the amphitheater where on the bottom level, actually during some parts of the year, hockey teams play there. And in some parts of the teams, there's like, big conferences and stuff. But there's a bottom level where there are these rooms. And at Hershey, it's really funny because these rooms are all like concrete rooms. So we're just talking about frequencies and stuff. When you're playing and rehearsing, all this sound is bouncing off all these walls, and it just sounds like I don't know what it sounds like, but
it's like playing in a gymnasium. It just keeps bouncing around.
Just everywhere, you know. So anyway, in terms of the process, though, we get there, we set up our instruments, and then we meet everybody. The cool thing about this is usually somebody knows someone else in the band already. Like there's, you know, there might be 2 guys from Berkeley and 2 guys from, you know, Pennsylvania, whatever. But we start rehearsals and and then we have the music right there before before rehearsal week, we've already been listening to the songs because they do send us recordings of it. They send us the music. So if you do your homework, you're going in already kind of knowing what they're supposed to sound like.
Right.
You know, if you have the space at home, you'll practice it. We get there and then, Monday happens. We start with the first tune and we just play it down. And we do that it's the whole week. And times were like 9. It's the same hours as the park that we would play at the park. So it's like 9 to 5. And we're just rehearsing the whole time with a lunch break, and it's very loose. It's not like super, it is structured, but it's not super like, you know, I don't know, boot camp in the sense that it's a hard time. And I think they did that more so with the Soda Pops because we were pretty talented guys. We knew our stuff going in, so we didn't really need someone to make sure that we were hitting it. But people would come in. We had our music director there. And we would just run those tunes down and just play them until we all felt good. The cool thing about it, and this, I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but the cool thing about it from my perspective is a week's worth of rehearsal, you play these tunes and you start to play them so much that you start to have like your little things that you do with the band that only musicians can come up with in the moment, you know. Right. That happens during rehearsal week, but then 3 months of the summer, you're starting to play them so many times that it just goes in completely different directions, which is my favorite part, you know. So,
yeah. Well,
so you kind of jazz it out and improv when you're live in front of the people.
Oh, it's and that's the favorite. That's what I think what made the Soda Pops what we were. Because again, initially we started as a 60s doo-wop band, and somehow from 2017 to the following summer, somehow it turned into Motown. And, you know, and I'm doing Stevie Wonder songs with the guys, and we're like doing Earth, Wind and Fire. And we're having these little skits, like these little comedy skits. And none of that was like, they didn't give us any of that. That was all stuff that the Soda Pops came up with on the spot. There was one we called, it's called Soda Pops Trivia. It was so funny. I wish the guys could be on there with me talking about it. But it was called Soda Pops Trivia, where in the middle of a song, we'll just stop playing the song. It's so funny because this came out of boredom. We got so bored playing the same songs 6 times a day for 6 days a week that it was like we're going to go crazy if we don't do something. So in the middle of us, it'll be random. It'll be like we're playing Superstition, and in the middle of the tune, we just stop. And the bass player, his name was Pete Mattice. And Pete will just play these random, I'm going to play it. He'll just play these random notes on bass. And then he'll say, let me see. Let me see if I can. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
He'll be like, Soda Pops Trivia. And then out of nowhere, and it sounded like a terrible garage band. And then we would ask a question to the audience that no one in the audience would know about one of the members in the band. And that sometimes it got a little risque, but it was super fun. It was super fun. So sorry, that was a tangent. I'm very sorry about that.
No,
that's awesome.
I love it. Because I was going to ask, what were some of those things? Because, I mean, you're hired to be a band and play music, right, but the goal is just to be entertaining. I mean, at a theme park, you're going there as a visitor to be entertained. And so those little things, if you've got to entertain yourself as you're doing this, because if you're not having fun, if you're getting bored with it, it's going to show. And so I think those little things like the Soda Pop Trivia.
Yep. And even to your point, something that I feel like I realized, it took me a while, maybe a month or two, that to your point, when guests come to visit the park, They're coming to have fun.
Yeah.
And and I'm not putting anyone else down when I say this. So I'm trying to be like careful.
Yeah.
But for a serious musician, for someone that is very focused on their craft musically, when you're playing a theme park gig, the focus isn't about great musicianship per se. You do have to have great musicianship, but what's most important is that the guests are having a fun and great time.
Right.
And that does not necessarily mean that you're playing, everything like you're playing in a, I don't know, in a classically incredible way. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know how else to explain that outside of, if you're playing at Carnegie Hall, you have a different mindset playing the piano than if you're at Hershey Park, because the audiences there are coming for different reasons.
Right.
Both are coming to be entertained. I'll say that both are coming to be entertained, but in a theme park, people are coming to have fun. And where we were, like that stage that's in your background, if on the other side of that, like if you're on the stage facing the audience, there are just all of these benches and these stools that people can sit down or not. Mostly people are walking because they're going to roller coasters and stuff.
Yeah.
So our job was to figure out how to get all of that traffic to come sit down. You know what I mean? And people aren't necessarily going to sit down if they hear incredible music the way that a jazz musician will hear incredible music. They're going to come sit down if they start laughing, or if they're like, oh, wow, that looks awesome. So that's the kind of stuff that we, slowly started developing, is how do we make this? It really became like a comedy routine more than it was a musical performance,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
music
and
is just
I
the
think
vehicle that we used for that.
Yeah. And as a musician, the way I kind of view it when I'm performing is I'm trying to give people an escape for 3 minutes at a time.
Right.
In comedy, it's a little bit that way too, because your bits, if you're a stand-up comedian, they're 3 to 5 minutes long before you transition. And so that's what y'all are doing. You're trying to get somebody to stop and sit down for 3, 4, 5 minutes, maybe longer, just to give them some entertainment, let them escape from, maybe their child's missing nap time because they're in the park, and let's just sit down. So we're, maybe in the shade a little bit or something.
Yeah.
Change it up a little bit, but still give them the value for the money that they paid to get in the park.
Yep.
Because also when you go to a piano performance at Carnegie, you're paying for that. When you go to a theme park and your main thought is I'm going to ride roller coasters, you're not thinking about stopping and watching this 6-piece band play music for 45 minutes.
Right. And even on the flip side, when you are walking through the park, your mindset is, I want to go to roller coasters.
Yeah.
But you do see, there's this group on the stage of, it looks like crazy guys, and there's a dude with dreadlocks and his hair's all over the place, and these guys are gyrating with their guitars and basses. That makes the roller coaster part of it even more fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. We can use that as a way and that's something that I think I learned. I learned over like a couple weeks to a month or two, like what the role is. And again, the first time you go to Hershey Park as a performer, you don't realize that. It's not until you're sitting there and you're experiencing the whole thing with the park that you realize what your role actually is, which in a lot of ways is almost like a philosophical, I don't know, there's a lot of philosophy that kind of helped me in my brain and in my heart and thinking in that. It's, I probably should like write about it or something.
Totally. Yeah. Well, that was my next thought was, okay, like you're saying, you're playing the same song 6 times a day, 6 days a week for an entire summer. And again, Bradley and I have seen you play a lot of music. You're an incredibly accomplished drummer and keyboardist. you've got so much enthusiasm when you're performing in front of people. So I can definitely see where the talent comes from. But what makes you say, okay, I did September or Superstition 6 times a day, 6 days a week for an entire summer. What makes you enthused about going back, not just 1 year or 2 years, but 4 years to go back and put yourself in that position again? Like what keeps you motivated and going to go back and to participate with the Soda Pops over and over again?
Yeah, man, that's a wonderful question. Well, one, I'd say the bandmates for sure. I think that would probably be at or somewhere near the top of my list are the guys, because you develop. It's not like just being on stage with performers and that's it. You really do develop a bond and a relationship, and things outside of the park or things outside of that, because we play, there are 6 sets a day. We play those 6 sets, but in between each set, there's sometimes there's 30 minutes or there might be an hour of us just being in the break room. And, we can't just go wander around the park during the hours unless we have a lunch break. But I remember just even in the break room, we have to entertain ourselves there. Like there's a piano and then just a bunch of couches. And then these dudes that are just, what are we going to do for an hour? And, and so, a lot of that is where we came up with jokes, or we're talking about Socrates, or like lunch, or, how hungry everyone was, or girls, whatever it is. And I say all that to say, the guys were a real, that time just made you even closer and a tighter knit band. So I think they were part of my inspiration. And I was like, yeah, I would love to go back because I know Corey's going to be there. I know Kevin's going to be there. I know Pete's going to be there. And, in terms of playing the same thing every day, I probably have a little bit different of a, maybe not a view than some people. I think some people do easily get bored with it. I think my personality is such that if I do something well, I don't mind doing it a million times because I did it well. It's the things that I don't do well that I'm not, whatever.
So I've got to ask, when you're playing it day after day, one, did the set order change, or was it pretty set top to bottom? Hey, this is how we're going to run things.
I can say this now because I don't work there anymore. But as far as the park as far as our mandate was concerned, yes, it was supposed to be the same, but yeah, we changed it. We changed it all the time. And that's part of what Chris's question, that was part of it, is like, how do you make, for me, that's the ultimate sort of thought process for a creative, is what are all of the innovative ways, and Brad and I talk about this, what are all the innovative ways that I can take an idea and spin that idea? That's one of the reasons I love stuff like SNL, or like, all the things. Take your industry. Yeah. What are the ways that I can take an idea and innovate it in a way that I never have before? And that was like, that's the goal at Hershey Park or any theme park. If you're playing the same thing every day, 6 days a week, then that's the goal, is, okay, how do I make it different this time? We have to play it 6 times today. How do we make it different each time? And then how do we make today different than yesterday? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I like that kind of stuff, because it forces you to either stay stagnant or it forces you to grow. And then even on top of that, not only how do we make it different, but how do we make the guests want to come sit down? You know what I mean? Yeah. And in one aspect, there are different people that come to the park every day, sure. But sometimes, and we had hecklers and things like that. And all of that is a part of like the thing, so I had fun with it because I was behind a drum set, and then they made the terrible mistake of giving me a microphone. I did that. I don't know, but I was like, bring it on, Jack, So So yeah, I mean, but in terms of your both of y'all's questions, I feel like that was my motivation. Was I want to get good at being innovative about an idea. I didn't know it in the way that I just said that. I didn't know it in those terms then.
Yeah.
But retrospectively, I know that now. And even like what I'm trying to do now in my life, that's kind of a constant thing about me is how can I make things more innovative? How can I learn more? How can I become more witty? You know, one of the things that I noticed about Chris Murphy, I mean, we talk all the time in the trucks and stuff, is that he's one of the most witty people I've ever met. And to me, that's fascinating. But it's that same idea if you're playing at Hershey Park every day is how do you take that concept and put it into a musical experience / a comedic experience for all these guests, you know, and yourself, to make it more fun. So
yeah, because the background is the three of us used to work together,
right?
And
right.
and drive all over the country doing stuff for our work. Now we don't get to hang out as much. But Otto, you mentioned hecklers.
Yeah.
Tell me how you handled those hecklers in the park, because again, if you're at Carnegie, hopefully there's no rowdy crowds like that anyways, but you're paying to go see that entertainer. So why would somebody who doesn't want to see it pay that money? Whereas in a theme park, again, they're probably going in for roller coasters.
Right.
And some of the other things, they're not necessarily going to see this band play. And so you're going to get more of those heckler kind of people. How did you handle those?
Well, I'll preface by saying the soda pops didn't get that many. We didn't get that many. I think other performers probably got more than we did.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I think we didn't get that many is because we were so loud, and we didn't really give an opportunity during the show really for people to say too much. Like, but in terms of handling it, I probably would say poorly. I wasn't. So we had. Okay, I'm gonna name all the cats. We had a vocalist, bass player, guitar, keyboard, drums, and then so it's 5 people. Everybody in the band is like super witty, like all the guys were hilarious. I wasn't, you know what I mean? On like compared to everyone else, I was like, man, I like being around these guys because they're just so quick and funny and all that. So I say that because, and we had a trombone player who was one of my great friends. His name is Corey Wallace. Corey is this big dude, like he's a big guy, right? Does not take a lot of stuff. Like, don't mess with. He's like Shaq, you know?
Yeah.
From Baltimore. He's from my hometown, Baltimore, and he just doesn't take stuff. So, like, if he was on stage, you really didn't worry about the heckler because he would like kind of tell him off, you know, which is funny.
Oh boy.
And on the flip side, we had like a Pete Mattice, who's a bass player. He was just like a witty guy. So anytime somebody said something, he always had a one-liner right back. For me, if something was said and nobody wanted to take it at that time, if everybody was just over it, I would just start playing stuff on drums, which you can't talk during drums because the drums are always louder. So I had an easy scapegoat. That was one. And then 2, I've always believed that this is a philosophy of mine. You know, I teach my kids or whatever, but I always believe that if people are giving you a hard time, one, you don't know their story. You know, it could be for any reason. And Brad, you were talking about like if their kids were missing nap time. Or maybe the reason they're there in the first place is because of a tragedy that might have happened in their life and they're trying to get somewhere. You know, sometimes people just kind of take that stuff out and it's not your fault. So I am, even though sometimes I don't handle it the best way, I try to be cognizant of that as much as possible. And when that's the case, my first reaction is give them the best show you possibly can and try to spread as much love through what you do as you can, you know?
Yeah.
And hopefully people can see when I'm playing drums or playing piano, like my passion about it. And I really, what I always desire is that spreads. So when a heckler comes, if a heckler comes and I'm hearing all that stuff, when we do start playing Superstition, I'll say, Pete, let me get a drum solo. And I'll try to do something that hopefully I think will impress or will like send them into awe. And I'd say maybe 8 out of 10 times that would work. It's just like, sometimes people just want just to have a good time. And then to take that to a more like humanitarian level, I guess. And you all know this about me. You've always known this about me. Sometimes people just need a hug. Yeah. And I have no issue. I have -1,000 issue with getting up from my drum set and just walking into the crowd and just giving somebody a hug. I remember doing it. There was one guy. That's awesome. There was one guy who was saying stuff, whatever. And after it wasn't super, I forgot which tune it was. I think it was a Stevie Wonder tune. But I got up from the drums. I just went down there, and Pete was like, "Otto, what are you doing?" And I just gave the dude a hug, and why not? You know what I mean? I'm at a theme park. And my thought is, man, you came to a theme park. You're heckling at a theme park. That means you need a hug. In my opinion, that means you need a hug. So I gave him a hug, and it was fine. Afterwards, the dude, it was like you could tell that something happened in his heart or something. So
something clicked.
Yeah. And my mom, thank Michelle Gross. Mom always, I don't know if this is right or not. I'm sure it's not scientifically proven, but my mom growing up, she would always say to us probably 3 times a week is that you need 5 hugs a day to keep normal. So she said something like you need 5 hugs a day to keep from being abnormal. I think that's what she said. And I'm sure it's not a thing, but I believed it. And, I gave the guy a hug.
Well, dude, I love that. I'll say this as now a therapist, I will say in some of the trainings that I took to become a therapist, I learned basically that thing. Oxytocin. And I don't know that oxytocin that is expressed when you have physical touch with another person calms people down. It makes them feel okay, so it can bring down a situation. So the fact that you were doing that, or your mom had said that all those years, like you need several touches a day to make sure that you are good. So the fact that you remembered mom talking and you like put it on the heckler, brilliant.
Yeah. Well, there's a podcast that I like listening to called If Disney Ran Your Life. And it's hosted by a guy named Jeff Knoll, who worked in the Walt Disney World Resort, mostly in hotels, I believe, but a very customer facing role. And then he helped, I believe, start the Disney Institute, which actually brings in business leaders, business people, and teaches them Disney principles and how Disney does stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's got a podcast called If Disney Ran Your Life. Mm-hmm. And on there, he keeps going back to this idea that there are 3 types of people in the world. Type 1, they're going through a personal hell of some sort. Type 2 has just gotten out of some sort of personal hell. Mm-hmm. And type 3 is they're about to go into a personal hell and nobody else knows what type of person they're dealing with. So when Disney is interacting with a guest who is unhappy, if you know that they're in one of those 3 things, you have a little bit more compassion. Yeah. You may go give them a hug.
Right.
Just jump off stage and do that. But I think that's a great way to handle some of that negativity, is realize it's probably not about me. Right. It's probably something else that's going on. And that's your job as an entertainer is to help them escape from that for just a few minutes.
10 out of 10 times it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's like never. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'd heard that there are 3 types of people in the world: those who can count and those who can't.
Well, hopefully those who can't aren't musicians, because counting is a big thing with music.
I'm glad Chris liked that one.
That got me. I almost fell out of my chair for real.
We lost Chris's video feed for a second with that one.
Hey, well, speaking of entertaining yourself, like you just entertained me there. Like when you're not on the clock, can you go throughout the park? Can you enjoy yourself? Do you have after hours where it's park entertainers can go do their thing? Like, what can and can't you do in the parks as a cast member at Disney or an entertainer at Hershey Park or wherever it may be?
Yeah, well, they do have employee only days where they'll open up the park. Sometimes it'll be in the morning. Sometimes it'll be like, after park hours, they'll do from like 6 p.m. to like 11 p.m. where they close the park, but only employees can come in and they can just do everything, which I love those. In fact, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but that was my first time getting on a roller coaster was at Hershey Park.
Wow.
It was because of that. Because up until 2017, I legitimately thought that I was afraid of heights. And I'd always told people that I'm afraid of heights.
Wait, 2017 or 2007?
Right, 7, yeah. I keep saying 17. Wow.
Hey, it's 2020. Time has gone out the window.
I'm telling you. But yeah, so they would have the employee only nights or employee only days, and those were super fun. As far as being on the clock and off the clock, if you're in uniform, you can't walk. The only place you can walk is to the cafeteria, which you go out of the gate of the park, and then we have a private employees cafeteria. But if you're in uniform, you can't go anywhere inside the park.
Yeah.
You can walk around during the day, but if you do, you have to take your uniform off. You have to take your costume off and walk around that way. So, but I love the perks of it. I mean, those perks were really great. We can get on anything we wanted to. Yeah, and that's when I fell in love with roller coasters. And I thought before that time, I think it was because my dad, he was afraid of heights, and he always said that. So I guess I just put that on myself, which, I'd love to discuss that one day with a therapist. Just, I don't even know why I did that. Because when I tried it, it was the Storm Runner. It was the first roller coaster I ever got on. And I was like, I can't believe I've missed like most of my life not getting to what? So then from then on, I will get on anything. I love roller coasters.
Yes.
So in answer to your question, yeah, they had employee only times, and and it was super fun. Also, we also had comp tickets, so employees could always get in no matter what. Yeah. But if you had family or friends that want to come, they gave us a certain amount of comp tickets, and I would just like if you and Brad wanted to go, y'all just go to the front, say Otto, and you'll have comp tickets right there. And I love that because I love being able to whatever thing I'm doing that year or that summer. I love all of my friends being able to benefit. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of being an entertainer is being able to give your friends stuff for free.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking about going on your first roller coaster. I was working with a youth group from a church, and we went to one of the Six Flags parks. Mm-hmm. And one of the kids that I'd gotten to know over that summer was like, I've never been on a roller coaster. I'm scared. And I can't remember which park it was, but it was one of those. And I don't know that I'd done one of these rides where you stand up and you're standing up the whole ride, but you still have the thing that comes over
the harness.
Yeah. But you're standing. And I said, I can't remember the kid's name now, but I said, hey, we're going to do this. And we're going in the front row. And I mean, he was a really funny kid, but he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, you can do it. I'll be right there. Right. Nothing bad is going to happen. And I mean, he was freaking out the whole time, but as soon as he got done, he's like, that was awesome. Can we do that again? But I want to ride in the front. I only want to ride in the front. And, so I can only imagine, I guess your 18, 19-year-old Otto kind of coming off the ride like, wait, that was one of the greatest things I've done in my life. Let's do that again.
Exactly that. I said that because it was one of my best friends, Russell. He was there. He's the one that it was because of peer pressure that I got on. That was the whole reason, because we had one of those nights. Russell was there with me. He's like, Otto, come on, get on this. I was like, I don't know, man. There were some girls there, and him, and everybody was getting on. I was like, well, I can't look like, whatever. So I'm just going, Lord, please just help me. So I did it. And that was the exact, as soon as I got off, my thought was, I cannot believe my whole life I've not done this. I just wasted a lot of my life being afraid of stuff,
Yeah.
Get rid of fear. Fear is
that's awesome.
I'm glad you've turned that corner. So you kind of touched on this earlier. The first summer you were there, you were playing drums.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Did
no, actually. No. The first summer, so that was the doo-wop summer.
Yeah.
First summer was piano. I got casted as a piano. That's what
true.
it was. That's what it was. Because I did audition on drums, but after Walt heard me play piano, I think he already had a drummer he wanted in mind. And because we were playing the doo-wop stuff, it wasn't like I needed all the fancy stuff. That's not the case in doo-wop music.
Right.
So yeah, I was playing piano, and we had the setup then. It was the Soda Pops. We had like these multicolored little shirts, and we had 5 sets a day. The 6th set was something called Party Band. We changed our costumes, and then there was another band that was a mobile band. I think they were called Chocolate Factory, but they were like a kind of a marching band, mobile band. There were a couple of trumpet players, a guy playing snare drum, and they would march around. We had a stage. They would march around the park and go to the water park and play for the guests. Well, during Party Band, they would come on stage with us, and then some of the vocalists will come on stage with us. There was a vocal group, caddy corner to that stage you see, called the Milkmen, and the Milkmen, they would come on when it was just a cappella quartet group or whatever. All these guys would come with us, and we had Party Band, and then that's when we played the Stevie Wonder and kind of the Earth, Wind, and Fire stuff. Well, the reason I say that is because Party Band happened once a day for the 6th set, and that wasn't just the Soda Pops, that was everybody. And I think because that was so successful, that's why they changed the Soda Pops to be a Motown funk band versus the doo-wop thing. The doo-wop thing wasn't really bringing in a whole lot of people, and we were trying. That was my first summer. We were trying, but they were like, "Man, this Party Band thing has something on it," And so I think that's why the following summer, 2008, is why they changed the music selection for the Soda Pops, put me on drums, and then started doing the Motown stuff. So, yeah.
So that's a great example of trying something and it going well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Were there days where things just went horribly wrong?
Yes.
I mean, having done live sound, I know there are days you get there, everything's the same, and for some reason the sound doesn't work. I'm sure there were days like that. What did you do on those days where just something catastrophic seemed to happen?
Well, the short answer is you just adapt. But I'm trying to think. There were some times when things went so wrong, we just got in trouble, and then we just got in trouble, and that was it. Yeah. And it was like, okay, well, go to sleep, and then tomorrow's going to be here. But there were little things sometimes, like Kevin, the guitar player, he would, and you both of you probably know that, have experienced this before, but his strings, because we were playing funk stuff, his strings would just pop all the time, strings popping. And there was one time when like 3 of his strings popped in like the second song, and we have 45 minutes to go, and he's got 2 strings, and he's like, well, I got to change my strings, guys. And so, okay. So we would have to, in instances like that, we would have to adapt, and the keyboard player would have to play more, or we have to figure something out. Certain tunes we couldn't play because he was doing the intro or whatever. And in fact, going back to something I said earlier, times like that's part of that is when we came up with some of these comedy routines, because one of the reasons we started doing, that's the reason Soda Pop's trivia started, was because I think Kevin like popped 3 of his strings.
Come on, Kevin.
And then we were like, well, we got to do something while he's changing strings. And then I think Pete came up with the idea, why don't we do like Soda Pop's trivia as a joke? And then we just started asking questions, being stupid while he's changing strings. So stuff like that would happen. I remember there was one time, and this is extremely vulnerable for me, but there was one time when I had to use the restroom. And
it happens.
I think we, and a little bit of my history, like I had surgery when I was in high school, scoliosis. Ever since that surgery, I have to be, this is like extremely personal. Maybe we should edit this part out. I don't know. I have to be intentional about just using the restroom, before going on like long trips or whatever. And for that day, I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. And so we play the tune, and then I think the second tune was like Signed, Sealed, Delivered or something. Halfway through, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta use the restroom. And I looked at our show captain at the time, and it was Corey. And I said, Corey, man, I gotta use the bathroom. He's like, man, just hold it. And everybody can hold it. Otto can't hold it. It was like the bladder was like, hey, look, man, we're going in 3 minutes, so you can decide where that is, So I'm playing. I'm like, oh man, and then I just got, this is not a joke. I just got up in the middle of the song. Everybody's still playing. And this was one of those days. Where we had a lot of people. There were people there because we were killing it that day. So there was a lot of people there sitting in the chairs. And I was like, Corey, I'm gonna go on this is not a joke. So I just got up, and I'll be honest, there was a little of it came out. And it was, look at Brad's background. This is funny, but it was not funny then. But that's what we had on. It was that summer. And you see, we have white pants on. And I was not drinking water that day. It was like Kool-Aid and stuff. So, and then the worst part about it is that from that stage that you see, it's probably, I don't know how many yards, but it's a lot of yards. You have to walk down a small hill, and that's where our green room was. But the hill is like in the opposite direction of that stage. So I'm walking through a lot of guests. Like people can see us walking. So I got up, I walked down there. Corey was like, I don't know what he's doing. And he started talking to the audience like, we're sorry, folks. We have a difficulty. I don't know what he said, but I had to go. I think people saw stuff, and it's probably the most embarrassing day of my life was that day. And, your question is, what do you do? I went to the bathroom and changed my clothes. And then, and we didn't do the rest of that set. And then we got up in the next set. And the guys all laughed at me. But hey, so yes, things go wrong, and that was one of them, and I will never forget that day.
Well, that brings back memories of Cool Runnings when Sanka has to pee. He's like, Coach, I gotta go. You can't, Coach, I gotta go. You just gotta hold it. hold it. And then they get to the end of the run, and I can't remember who was in the bobsled with him, but he says, Sanka, you can pee now. And he says, too late,
right? Sorry, dude.
It's like, man. Corey, I gotta go. Hold it. Not happening.
So that's not fun.
It wasn't, but I laugh on it now because because the flip side is I'm glad that wouldn't happen at Carnegie Hall, and it's never happened since because of that very reason. So you learn from those kinds of things. In terms of sound, those are kind of easy enough to adapt to. There were days when we were too loud, and the park directors would come and they had like this DB
DB reader, yeah,
the DB reader that they would come through and they would see. And because of the style of music that we played and the kind of music we played and how we were, we always failed it. And it was like, guys, you guys are too loud. We heard that all the time. The soda pops, you guys are too loud. Soda pops, too loud, too loud. So we would adjust for a couple minutes until they left, and then it's like, nah, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend tells a story when Johnny Lang, blues guitar player, I think he grew up in the Minneapolis area, but he would come into this guitar shop, and just dime everything out on the amp, turn everything up as loud as it would go, and the shop workers would come over and say, hey, can you turn down? And he would pretend to turn the knobs because he's, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old at the time.
Yeah.
What kids do. And they know he's not actually turning the knobs. Right. And so as soon as they walk away, just rip back into it.
Right. Just do it. There you go.
But I mean, I think that's what musicians like to do, especially when you're playing kind of that funky pop stuff. It's just, I want to be loud.
I want some juice. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, with a couple minutes that we have left here, I'd just love to hear like the things that you were the most memorable, that you love the most about being a park entertainer, and then the things that you like the least about being a park entertainer.
Yeah. Well, things I love the most, I'd say the people for sure. The music, well, I guess that's specific to your situation, but for mine, I loved the music that we played, and I feel like I had grown in that. I love the freedom of the summer. This wasn't exactly about the park entertainment per se, but on the one day we had Sundays off. And we would go down to Harrisburg because that's 45 minutes or an hour drive. And we would go and play jazz nights sometimes, and stuff like that was real fun just to kind of get away and play some music or go to Sheetz and get like a burger. I love the freedom of the summer. Like summer is my favorite time because there's no work, there's no, exams and all that sort of thing. I do enjoy that. And that was just fun. I had time to work out. That's when I weighed more than I do now. I looked a little like I had a little meat on my, muscles or whatever. There was like 2 summers where you'd think I could do something. Those were great. The money was pretty good. I would say the money was good. I guess the only thing about the money is that if you didn't live there, you had to pay for your housing, but the money was still good. And I'd recommend that for anybody, especially if you're in college and you enjoy performing, you like having a fun time. I mean, that's a great thing to do. And cruise lines are the same way. So in terms of what I like the least, I didn't really like it ending. I mean, those last couple of days, I don't know, just like anything, when you have a great thing going, those last couple of days, you kind of feel like, man, it's coming to an end. Yeah, there were moments during the middle of the summer where it's a drag and you're like, oh, I can't wait for this to stop. It's towards the end, you're like, nah, I want to keep going. I don't really want to go back to, exams and professors and all that sort of thing. So maybe that. Sometimes, I mean, that whole idea about being quiet and just having to abide by park like policy as it relates to sound, I wasn't a fan of that, but it was fine. It didn't really bother me. That's probably it. But one more thing about what I really loved, and I don't really know how to explain this super well. I'm kind of just feeling it now, but there was almost kind of a, I don't know. There's something about the summer felt like it was a fantasy almost. And I just, whatever that thing is, it felt like I was inside of a great fiction novel that just, I don't know, like let you lose yourself, because there's all this performance and great moments and magical moments and whatever that is, however I can sum that up in a phrase, I think that's the thing that I love the most about it. And nostalgically, that's what I feel. When I think about Hershey Park, I'm always thinking of that thing, whatever that thing is. It was super fun. I'd love for anybody to experience it from either the performer side or the guest side. I just felt like those made those days great. You got to go to the park, you're playing music, you're hearing music, you're seeing people have fun. People are there with their families, swimming and making jokes and eating, name your candy and a bunch of chocolate costume characters, you know what I mean? That kind of, I just love that. Everything about that is like what I would want the country to be, you know what I mean? So
yeah, totally.
That's the thing, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, before we let you go, I actually have a question for Chris. Chris, didn't you audition for some sort of park entertainer role?
Yeah, I did.
What's the story?
Probably a few years before Otto started doing his thing, I lived in Los Angeles, and I lived in a part of Los Angeles that was kind of equidistant from Six Flags Magic Mountain up in northern Los Angeles area, and then Disneyland to the south in Orange County. So I was about an hour away from both of them. But I had an opportunity to audition for, I can't now remember at Disneyland if it was Prince Charming or Prince Philip, but it was one of those characters at the Disney parks. And I auditioned for that. And then I auditioned for Batman at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And I was kind of in the opposite way of what Otto was talking about, because I went and auditioned for Batman, and what they had you do was like put on the outfit and then walk around in the back side of the park for a while to just like feel how you can move around in the outfit. And I can remember that it doesn't rain often in Southern California, and it's not often humid, but for whatever reason, when I got there with the black top that a lot of parks have, there was so much steam coming off of it. And this Batman mask would just suction to my head of getting it put on. And once I put that on and several layers of just black Batman outfits, I looked really cool, but I was so hot. And I barely got the outfit on, and I was exhausted. And so I was walking around, and they're like, yeah, you look good. Like, try to make a pose and do some kind of superhero-y things. And I like the way that I looked in it, but I realized that I can't talk when I get out and amongst the people walking through the parks. And so I started feeling really, I was just surrounded by people, but I felt lonely, that I couldn't express myself. I could express myself in movements, but I couldn't say anything. And it was just, if I would have taken the role, it would have been me walking around the parks as Batman several times throughout the day. And I thought during the Southern California heat, wearing all of that outfit, couldn't talk to anybody. And I didn't have a group of people like Otto, you did with the band members. It was just, Batman, other than Robin, he's a solo dude. And so all of that, I left that audition or that tryout feeling, I didn't want to be stuck for an hour plus driving there every day and then back. And then I felt like I would be so lonely that I ended up not taking the role. But to do something like what you did with a group of people and to be able to have that camaraderie, like what you were saying a minute ago, the way you were describing it was a bit like in my later teen years when I was a camp counselor. I kept coming back and doing that. And again, at the max, as a 19 or 20-year-old, the max that I made a week was $110. And so like, you don't do it for the money,
right?
Because, they give you housing and they feed you and all that kind of stuff. And so I made barely any money for an entire summer, but I kept coming back year after year because the camaraderie, the being with being able to be a camp counselor and to entertain and to kind of shape young minds, that was really interesting and thoughtful for me. But then also just being around all the other camp counselors. So I definitely can understand that camaraderie about, even if you play the same song hundreds of times a summer, why you would want to come back and do it again, because of just the amount of fun that you can have with the people around you.
How would you say, one, did you enjoy the audition for Prince Philip, or?
The farthest I got with that was I auditioned and I sang a couple of songs. And so I came in with like Once Upon a Dream that I sang.
It was a singing role?
Yeah. It was like a stage show. So I would have played whatever role it would have been and gone and done the performance, whatever it would have turned out to be. But yeah, it would have been a singing role. And so I wouldn't have, in that role, I wouldn't have walked around the parks, I don't think. But I would have been on stage a couple of times a day doing like the Cinderella or the Sleeping Beauty stage show.
Man, I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see pictures of you in tights, either as Batman
Right.
or Prince Charming, Prince Philip, whoever it was.
There's still a chance though.
But again, it was one of those things where to think about as much of a dream come true it would have been to have worked at Disney and to say that I was Prince Charming or whatever. Like the freeway driving, like the time on the freeway was the real thing. And so I got to I think I tried to talk myself out of it because of the time that I would have spent on the freeways out there. But yeah, that would have definitely been a better experience than being Batman and just kind of suctioned to a mask for hours a day. But yeah.
Well, Otto, I just want to say a huge thank you for being a part of our show today. I feel like I've learned a whole lot that I had no idea went on with just being a park entertainer. Is there a place where if people just want to see what you're doing creatively now, is there a place that people can go to see what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, one, these are fairly new for me, but I just started a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You can go to youtube.com/Otto Gross Music. Same for Facebook. I just put together a Facebook music page, Otto Gross Music, same there. Follow me, please, if you want. If you don't, no worries. And then same for Instagram. I think the handle there is @Grow55 Productions. But I think if you just search Otto Gross, then I'll probably come up. So yeah.
Awesome.
And I'll try to do more things, and there we go.
Well, thank you, Otto, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Y'all are amazing.
It was a blast, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, that was
what a
so
dude.
great.
What a guy. I love him.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
All right. So we can just jump right into plussing.
Cool.
And then we'll do the intro.
Yeah. Perfect. Cool.
Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, Otto, just what an entertainer all around.
I can
so
listen to
glad
him tell stories
that
all
I've
day
gotten to
long.
see him in person.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I could just hang out with him, and I miss not hanging out with him all the time. Again, because you and we really got to know each other driving across the country for the company that I worked for, you worked for. And that's how we met Otto as well. And the very first day I met him, I think that I shook his hand in the parking lot. I grabbed his bag, threw it in the back of these vehicles that we used to drive around the country. And he and I drove from Nashville to Washington, D.C. within 15 minutes of meeting each other. And we did not stop talking the entire time, and really haven't since then. He is just that fun, that easy to get to know. And just, again, like being cooped up in a truck with him for hours upon hours, it only like deepened our friendship more because he's that entertaining and such a good dude to hang out with and get to know.
Yeah, just great all around dude. Extremely talented guy.
Good grief,
I love I just sit back. He's one of those guys that, as a performer, I play guitar, I do my thing, and then I see him play, and I want to take it off and set it down and just say, look, you got it.
I agree. I remember the first time I heard him play the drums, I was like, that may be one of the best drum performances I have ever heard. And I've listened to a lot of music over the years, but he just did that. And then he gets behind the keyboard and is as proficient a keyboardist as he is a drummer. Like, not just a good musician. He is a great musician. And
Yeah.
the fact that he is so talented and he's like next level entertainer, you can tell that those days with the soda pops, he learned those chops of just being a consummate musician and also just an amazing entertainer as well.
Yeah. And it's funny when if he plays piano first and people are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I'll say, yeah. Problem is he's not a piano player. He's actually a drummer. And then when he gets back there, and I mean, he feels really comfortable on keyboards, but there's just another level of comfort when he gets behind the drum set that I absolutely love. He himself is really just a plussing segment in his own right. But let's get to our plussing for this week. So, Chris, you brought up this plussing idea. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, just talking about Otto and his amazing ability to entertain the audiences that he did for 4 years at Hershey Park. We have talked a lot. We've mentioned it on the show here, and we've talked a lot off the mics here about being in 2020. It's sad because people of that caliber that, put their heart and blood, sweat, and tears and soul into entertaining the crowds. And so many of them have been either furloughed or let go because of the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis that we find ourselves in. And so the plussing for this week is just to try our best with so many people. There was just an announcement a week or two ago that 28,000, that is like, there are towns that are much smaller than that. So 28,000 cast members from Disney have been let go because, just trying to keep up with the demand of people either in Disney World being able to go to the parks, but a smaller experience, but or maybe I said Disney World there in Orlando, but in Disneyland, it's still closed. And here we are in November that we've talked about this. And so the fact that it's been closed now for 6-8+ months mean that these people don't have jobs anymore. So knowing that the holidays are coming along, I was just reading an article recently from InsideTheMagic.net that has just links of how you can support these cast members. And there are a lot of cast members that, because they're not working, they've started these really cool Etsy shops, making Disney memorabilia, making their own trinkets and stuff. So the plussing for this week is just take care of our fellow brothers and sisters out there that what they love to do is entertain people, and they can't do that right now. So support those cast members by going to the link that we'll put into the podcast description, and also we'll put it into the YouTube description as well. But it's at InsideTheMagic.net. But just support those people by, if you're going to buy Christmas presents, check out what they're already doing and support them through that way.
Yeah, there's some great stuff. I've seen it. I haven't pulled the trigger on any of it yet, but I mean, my fingers trembling, getting ready to hit buy. So check that out to support people who have brought a lot of joy to a lot of people over the years and find themselves, because of the current pandemic, without any income. Go visit that link, like Chris said, in the notes on the show and the YouTube video, but also find us on social media at The Mouse and Men on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find our YouTube channel as well, and go to themouseandmen.com, where you can get our top 10 things for grownups to do in Walt Disney World. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Mouse and Men. Until we see you again, don't grow up too fast.
But keep exploring.